So here we go. As written, key points in NFT system design. Let's get into it. No matter how long your system, how many crops you're growing, or whatever material choice you've chosen for your channel, one thing holds true. You need to rest your channel at some kind of minimum slope. Now, just like with math and Cartesian coordinates, the slope is measured in rise over run. So this is the rise, how much it rises or even falls, the rise or fall of the channel over the run. So there we go, the rise or the slope over the run. Minimum slope is typically given in one of two styles, either a straight measurement in this rise over run or converting this to a percentage. A straight measurement typically is suggested about an inch per yard. So that's a rise or fall of about 1 inch per yard, or 36 inches. Otherwise, you'll often see a recommendation for approximately 2%, which if we did the math and took this 1 inch over 36 inches, took it out, this is actually a 2.78, almost a 3% slope. So you can see they're roughly the same suggestion, just whichever way you would like to remember it, whichever way makes the most sense to you. So we translated rise over run into percent. We can translate percent into rise over run. So this would be a 2-unit rise or fall over a 100-unit run. This unit can be anything, so long as they're the same. It could be inches, it could be meters, whatever works for your system. There's typically no upper limit to the slope, so nutrient film technique also applies in vertical growth with towers. We no longer have a 2% slope. Well, it's hardly a slope at all. This is 100% slope. This is for every unit of distance, there is absolute rise or fall. There is, or even actually, there's like no run. There's 1 unit of run for up to an infinite, any amount of rise. So that's our main point. Making sure we have a slope of some kind so that there is flow. Were we to just make a flat channel with no rise or run, that water would just sit here and fill up, when instead we want a flow where the water can't build up and instead is exiting the system. Now that you know how to establish the slope on a single channel, let's assume that you've connected this whole channel. You've got a whole system up and operating. One pump connecting and running nutrient solution through all of them. Something you need to be aware of with this moving water is that these channels have an incredibly high surface area compared to their contained volume. So a very high surface area to volume ratio. If you know anything about soil particles, I know this is hydroponics and we're not talking about soil, but the principle of those particle sizes continues here. As particles get smaller and smaller, the amount of surface area they have compared to the volume that is contained within them, the mass contained within, continues to increase. So if you have something very, very large, it's got perhaps more surface area than something small, but it's also got a lot of volume inside it. So it's maybe, for every unit of surface area, there's 10 equal sized units of volume, or not equal sized. Unit of surface area, there's 10 representative volumes inside. Whereas we get smaller, it becomes maybe 5 or 1 to 5, and now 1 to 1 by the time we get really small. This matters here because these growing channels are very small themselves. They have a large surface area with a low water volume running through it, which means the air temperature is going to quickly, rapidly affect the water temperature. So in short order, whatever your water temperature starts out as, it quickly becomes the same temperature as the air. This can be good, it can be bad, but it's a facet of nutrient film technique system design that you need to know about so that you can adjust for, control, predict, and plan for this effect here, water temperature, air temperature becoming water temperature. The most pressing, immediate consequence of this air temperature affecting water temperature occurs every day as the sun shines and then it drops and it becomes night. Whether you run your pump during the night or not, these temperature swings are going to affect your water temperature. So if you are pumping the water at night and the night is cooler, you're quickly cooling your nutrient solution. And then of course you're pumping during the day, which means you're quickly heating your nutrient solution. So while pumping, your nutrient solution is changing temperatures, be it, depending on whether it's day or night. And this temperature swing is not good for crop production. So one thing growers sometimes do is not pump during the night, which means that the nutrient solution which heated during the day returns to the sump and stays there during the night and does not cool down. This results in more stable growing conditions for your crop, which results in a greater crop harvest for you. What are some other things we can do about this? There are a couple classic moves that any crop producer tends to take. The first would be to isolate, protect your growing environment. Put it under some kind of culture. So by just putting it underneath this plastic in a hoop house, caterpillar tunnel, greenhouse, whatever this is, we've now isolated the air temperatures from the outside and inside. So we're already insulating the crop from the environment. Now that it's protected and isolated, we can start manipulating this environment. We can simply add heat in the form of a heater. Unique to hydroponics, we can use something called an in-sump heater. So before the water is pumped out and to all these channels, we can put some little heater inside there. These are both ways to add heat to your system. However, sometimes you might want to keep heat out. So of course, we could increase the insulation of this protective barrier by adding another layer. We could insulate the channels themselves so that the spot that contains the growing solution and has the plants and the plant roots is itself insulated from the environment. So that could mean using some kind of special material to insulate the edges, the surfaces. It also comes down to the material choice itself. If you begin looking for professionally produced NFT channels, you'll find that they're quite often, or almost always, white. This is because it's got an incredibly high albedo value. So albedo is a measure of how much incoming radiation, how much incoming light that's striking a surface is absorbed and retained by that surface. Where albedo ranges from 0 to 1, where 0 is a perfect substance that absorbs all incoming radiation and 1 is a perfect substance that reflects all incoming radiation. And so if we choose white, we're getting closer towards this 1 value and reflecting incoming radiation. So as the sun's light comes in, it either hits the insulation and is blocked, or hits this white high albedo value and reflects back out, and the heat doesn't stay in the system. Okay, I need some space, so I'll erase this, and we'll go into a couple final things about temperature control. So I want to make a quick note about a header tank. I should have done this while I had the other drawing still up, but that's all right. So if we have a series of NFT channels, the classic condition is to have these channels all drain down to a single sump location, which itself contains a pump, which then sends the nutrient solution back up through the channels yet again. The other option, which again, this is why I'm bringing it in because of the temperature control, is to actually intervene and pump from the sump to the header tank, which then allows you to more directly control this water. It opens up some different irrigation options, but also allows you, this header tank opens up some different irrigation options, but most importantly, allows you to control the water immediately before it enters the channels. It's still a singular place like the pump was, where all the water goes to and all the water comes from. However, it's moved where the pump is always the lowest point in your system. We now have an extra tank up top acting as a waypoint and a control point to help give you more fine control over the water in your system. One final heat control option uses some high-tech manufacturing to produce channels which aren't these default plastic extrusions that you see on the market today that are just a box. The water flows along the bottom. If this is the cross section, the water's on the bottom there and the plant's in the top. And that's it, it's just a box. However, you can get things with, they're called gusset channels, but the important part are the flanges that they offer, which provide thermal protection from incoming light, and going back to like that albedo value that we were talking about. So if we keep this same cross section, approach, we have a long channel, we slice it and we look at it from the end. Gusset channels typically look like this. So far, similar to this one up here. We've got the base where the water rests and this point here which holds the plant in place. But remember those flanges that I mentioned? This gusset channel, after the base and the sides and this pinch for the plant, then doubles back on itself. These flanges, foils, false walls, whatever you want to call them, act as a barrier to incoming heat. So just like when we had that greenhouse open, without these flanges, let's say there's light coming from the bottom somehow, without the flanges, if there's sunlight coming in, it's going to hit the edge of the channel, and then it's going to immediately warm the channel, and then it's going to warm the solution. Whereas if the sunlight's coming in from the side, it hits this, it warms this, and then it's air cooled underneath. This whole section is an empty void of air, which allows that flange to soak up that incoming radiative heat and put it out into the greenhouse atmosphere instead of transferring it to the solution or the plant. It can only transfer it down here or up here where it touches the plant. That's a lot less of an area. Rather than transmitting heat across this entire section, we're just transmitting heat at either end. And then of course there's a number of different designs. Another version of this gusset channel could look like this. So this is a bit of a different design. Really, it's just about casting shade on itself and helping to decrease how much sunlight it might actually receive. So a square like this, it's going to catch sunlight across this entire edge, whereas something like this, it's catching sunlight, not along that whole piece here. So we have a shady, cooler portion. There's a lot of different options for gusset channels. They're pretty interesting, not super common, but if you look for them, I encourage you to give them a shot. Oh, wait. So while we're on these topic of the gusset channels, they're pointing out something incredibly important. Your NFT channels should be flat bottomed. This helps keep them from rolling around. Professional purchased channels don't often have a round bottom, but especially hobbyists, amateurs who are converting using some other substance and converting, say, pipes. If you take a pipe, cross section of a pipe, and you try and attach that to some kind of support structure, well, you can put a plant in the top, no problem. And you can put water in the bottom. But two things are happening. One, you're gonna have to work pretty hard to secure this so that it does not rock or roll either way, left or right. The other thing is that this gives a lot less room, a lot less volume for both the nutrient solution and the roots from this plant. We don't need to dig into the math, but if I used a square piece, basically the same limits, but a square piece, you can see there's all this extra room for nutrient solution, for plant roots, for air, for thermal buffer, anything you could want. And it's no longer rocking, right? It's secure, flat, easy to keep secure. So hopefully you found this helpful and are able to take away from this some of the key points in NFT system design, some of the things unique to a nutrient film hydroponic production. Thanks, and I'll see you around.